Yes.
I'm doing a bit, Tim.
Oh.
I was doing the intro in silence. Oh, God damn it.
That was a good bit. I didn't realize. I thought there was some noise like back here, so I thought you were telling me like to wait for the noise or something.
Jesus. I thought he'll get the joke. We could do this. Admittedly, I was probably going to have to edit it for the audio version because, you know, it doesn't really work in audio. You can't see anything. So,
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, we're Screams After Midnight. We talk about horror movies. I'm Peter, that is Tim. And naturally, we're talking about A Quiet Place, hence the joke, because this is a movie that is set in a post-apocalyptic world where there's monsters that hunt purely on sound. So everyone, this family, has to stay quiet. So we'll start spoiler free, as we always do. We'll give you warning before we go into spoilers. But the gist of the movie is that it's directed by John Krasinski, who of course played Jim on The Office, and this is him directing the movie and starring in it with his wife Emily Blunt. Yeah, so that's the thing. But yeah, so it's them and their kids, and they have to be as quiet as possible. So it's a movie that has very little in the way of dialogue because they're constantly creeping about and trying not to make any noise. Because as we see quite early on in the film, it really sets up the idea that if they make any kind of notable noise, the monsters are coming and they will kill you. So this is what we were fairly excited about. It had a good trailer, has a good premise, got a good strong gimmicky horror premise. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a good way. It's a good high concept horror premise that should lead to some suspense and stuff. So I'll be curious to see the response to this question. Tim, did you enjoy A Quiet Place?
I did. I enjoyed it a lot. I maybe have like a few minor complaints, but overall, really solid flick. The performances were great. Even like, without them having to speak and stuff, it still, felt like a really good, performances from everybody. And, I feel like this is something that actually like lives up to its premise, which, that I feel like isn't always the case with horror movies. A lot of times we'll hear about like, oh, this sounds so cool, this is a great idea, and then it just really, doesn't live up to it. I thought this, has a very easy premise, and I feel like it delivered on what I was expecting for
I think the big example for us for that not living up to its premise, I think the recent one I'd say is Lights Out, where that felt like it didn't.
Perfect, yeah.
It didn't do everything it could have done with that premise. Whereas this mostly does, I liked it a lot as well. I think I have one main criticism, I guess, but yeah, no, I liked it a lot. I think honestly, my only kind of, other than my one criticism that I'll get to, which is full on spoilers by the way, I can't even talk about it till we get to spoilers.
Yeah.
But my only sort of general negativity towards it, in spoiler free territory, would be, I think it's really, really, really good, but I don't think it hits the amazing territory that I thought it might before I saw it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like it's like I liked it a lot, but it's not something that I'm like, oh, this is easily one of my new favorite horror movies or anything. Like, no, it's really good. I'd certainly watch it again. I wouldn't really mind that, but yeah, it hasn't reached that kind of upper status of some other movies.
Yeah. But to get to the positives though, it is very well shot. Because there's hardly any dialogue, all the information has to be conveyed, mostly visually. Obviously, there's some sign language here or there that's subtitled, but it's very much conveyed visually. It's a visual story, and the simple premise actually leads to a lot of really tense moments. It's kind of the same reason why Don't Breathe worked really well, but they had to be quiet.
Yeah,
it's the same thing here, just on a much bigger scale, and it made for a very unique theater experience because the movie has long stretches of being very, very quiet, so you're all just sitting there very, very quietly together with a bunch of strangers, and quiet things are happening. And then because it's quiet for so long, that when a loud noise does happen, it is really startling because it means danger, but just the fact that you've been sitting there in silence for 15 minutes, and it's like, oh no, some noise is playing or something, like something's happening, and I think that works really well. I have one or two criticisms of the ending, is probably where my main complaints would go, I think. But
mine as well. Which
Mm.
again, though, I do want to stress that I would say my complaints are pretty minor. Like it didn't really affect my bigger overall enjoyment of the movie. It's just one of those things that I'm kind of like, I think this could have been a little better. But
Mm.
yeah,
I,
it's
I'd also say, you know, how sometimes they'll say movies are roller coaster rides. I actually kind of feel like this one, once it kicks in, right? Once there's a certain point in this movie where once it gets going, it just never lets up, and you're tense for the rest of the film.
yeah. I was pretty surprised by that. Do you have the runtime on it by any
It's
chance?
yeah, it's 90 minutes, dead on 90
Okay.
minutes.
Okay, yeah, because I thought it like felt like pretty short, and I feel like it's because of yeah, once everything does kick in, it ratchets up pretty quickly.
Yeah, because I mean, most of the movie there's a couple of time jumps early on because it comes up saying day 98, after the
Right.
apocalypse happened, and
Yeah.
and then it skips ahead to whatever day. But once it skips ahead a couple of times very early on, the rest of the movie takes place in essentially one day slash
Mhm.
night. Like it's all kind of one big thing, and uh, it is purely a story of survival. There is some plot. There's enough to make it work, but it is very much okay. One core thing is happening, which admittedly wasn't spoiled in the trailers. I didn't know what the focus was going in terms of like what are they going through that is causing the chaos right now. Um and yeah, once it gets going, it doesn't let up. It's this knock on effect from one event to the other. And because I think when I saw the trailer, I assumed it was going to be like a road trip movie. I thought they were going to be traveling a lot, try to find like people or something, and that's not in the movie at all.
Yeah. I know I think I know what you're talking about, and I'm a little bummed that I think a little bit before the movie actually came out, I saw
Hmm.
like a newer trailer for it that
Uh,
kind of like again didn't like reveal any major scenes, but it did kind of give me that like, oh, this is like a big thing that's gonna happen, and I was like,
yeah.
not like completely ruining the movie or anything, but just like it might have been nice maybe to not know that.
I do think this is one worth seeing blind and not knowing much, and just
Yeah.
discovering what the world is and what the. Because again, I think the most impressive thing about it is just the fact that it does so much of what it does completely visually in
Mhm.
silence, and it is tense, it is suspenseful. There's a couple of good jump scares even, um, which I thought were
Yeah.
quite effective. And again, because it's so quiet for so long, and there
Mhm.
is music, of course, but the music very wisely is doesn't overdo it. It does the emotional stuff. When there's an emotional scene, you'll get the emotional strings and whatnot. But when it comes to the scary stuff, it doesn't usually overplay what it's doing. It tends
Yeah.
to just let it be quiet, and it'll maybe kick in when the bad thing happens. But it's kind of like it puts you in the same situation as the characters because for them everything's really quiet until it's not. Uh,
Yeah.
so
I just like I like all like kind of the simple noises in the background because like you
mm.
still hear stuff that you would hear like the rustling of the grass and like wind and stuff and
Oh
like
yeah, there's the ambience you get.
yeah,
Yeah, and whenever they're doing anything, you hear like they're moving something on a table. You still hear the subtle little noises of it
yeah,
happening, and but the sound design's actually really smart. It's probably the star of the movie in a lot of ways is the sound
yeah.
design, and
Yeah, whoever I feel like whoever did like all the like Foley stuff for this should probably get like a big shout out
yeah,
because they had a lot more work than usual, or at least
yeah.
it stands out more.
I think so. Yeah, I think at the very least it's a lot more simple, little subtler things, which I think typically horror movies tend to have the more subtle noises more than the big movies. Because big action movies, there's things exploding into buildings and there's the laser beams and the whatnot, it's all the fancy stuff. Whereas this is just now really simple things. Here's a weird. I don't want to say it's a critique. This is not an actual complaint against the movie, but it's just a thought I had because they're all on their bare feet at all times because it's quieter, right? Even when they're outside. But I kept thinking like, well, okay, no, I get why you're not wearing shoes, but you can still wear socks so your feet aren't getting dirty. Like,
True.
I
Yeah.
mean, why are you not wearing socks? Still exist. Socks aren't, they didn't go out of date. It's not like the food in the
Yeah.
post-apocalypse.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. I guess it would be nice if it's cold, but I could see not wanting to wear socks if it's like a warmer summer day or something.
Okay, okay.
I don't know.
But no, but that's the
That is a
thing.
good point.
During the opening scenes, they've got their big jackets on. Like, they're really
True,
bundled
yeah.
up, but they're walking in their bare feet. And I'm like, you can still wear socks. Like,
Yeah.
if anything, they're quieter than bare feet.
Yeah. So, what do you think about like, did it hit some like emotional beats for you? Because, essentially you know, and I don't think this is really spoilery, but you know, it's about a family, and you
Yeah,
know,
yeah. It's got that kind of like bittersweet sadness to it because it's this family trying to survive, and it's like, well, even if they do succeed and survive and raise their kids, what future do their kids have in this world? It's got that kind of sadness to it. Yeah, that kind of works. I think the emotional beats play fairly well. I don't want to say that I was like, oh, I was taken and swept away, but it was enough that when they were in danger that I did care about
yeah,
what was going on. So I think it succeeded in that sense. Um, yeah. Another thing, actually, going back to the sound design, is that the daughter is deaf, and whenever like it cuts to her point of view, even the ambient noise goes away.
yeah. That was I thought a cool little
It
uh
was because
trick there.
when it did that and something would happen behind her or something, it would happen in complete silence. And
Yeah,
it was another neat way of playing with the audio and playing with the, oh, you can't see this, or you can see this but she can't, but she can't even hear it either.
yeah,
Because her dad throughout the movie keeps trying to like build her a hearing aid that works, and it's not happening. And it's like, yeah, that's still very important, as much as no one's talking, and therefore she, it sounds like, oh, maybe she wouldn't need it. Yeah, but she still has to know if there's danger. If she can't hear if there's noise that's attracting these things, like, she's screwed.
yeah.
So yeah, that was a fun thing to play with as well.
Yeah, I thought their relationship was really well, and that you know, young actress did a really great job, and I believe she's deaf in real life as well. They
Oh really?
hired
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, I think I saw some articles about that talking about how it was important, like you know, to the filmmakers to hire like a real deaf person, and yeah, I thought she did great.
Yeah, yeah. Um. So yeah, I think all that stuff. I think I like how the movie looks. Actually, I think
Oh, yeah,
as soon as it started, I'm like, okay, right, I'm getting the right kind of visual mood for this. Like, I'm getting the tone, because a lot of the movie does take place kind of in their kind of like farmhouse area and like the surrounding woods and stuff. So there's not a whole lot of like
which
stuff in the city and
in
whatnot.
in my head canon, that is
Oh.
Shroot Farm.
Okay, so it took what, 13 minutes before you made a reference to The Office. Very good.
It's impossible not to. It's I don't want to belittle John Krasinski, but it's really hard not to make a few office jokes.
Tim, he's got a beard now. He's a serious actor.
Of course, how could I forget?
Yeah. Joe, it's funny. Like, I think John Krasinski had this thing, and I think the beard legitimately helps with this, where he's got a face that he's a very handsome dude. Don't get me wrong. I'm not criticizing his looks, but I think his round chin and nose give him this kind of like jovial, goofy, kind of friendly presence. Which is why when he
I
was,
can see that. Yeah.
when he was up for roles at Captain America, I'm like, I don't see him being an action hero. He looks too.
Yeah.
It looks too like the fun guy next door who'll watch a movie with you. It looks too much like that.
Yeah.
And I mean that in a friendly way. But the beard does help with that a little bit. It hides some of his baby good looks, I suppose is what I'm saying. Of course, Emily Blunt sees something in him because she's working with him and married to him. So so naturally there's some chemistry there between them, which is nice. I have a running joke with Connor that we watch Supergirl, of course, for the television for the Multiverse podcast, and she's had two different like real life partners in that show as love interests at various points in the show, and both
The actress that plays Supergirl.
yeah, because in season one, like there was like it was like a one maybe 2-part episode where she went on a date with this guy, and he was just this kind of bland actor, and I criticized immensely how they had zero chemistry, and then found out they were married in real life, and then like 6 months later they get a divorce. So I'm not saying I called it, but I did say they had no chemistry and then divorce. So it's nice to see that these two might actually have a chance of making it as a couple, because it felt like a
John
real
Krasinski
connection.
and Emily Blunt.
Yeah.
Oh.
They're married.
No, I
Oh,
know,
yeah.
but I just like that you're saying like they might have a chance. It's like, yeah, I think they've already proved that they're married. They're not some a super fling that you're talking
Married
about. But
couples get divorced, Timmy. Now I know you're getting married
no,
this
it's
year,
not true.
so you've got this idealistic view of marriage where it's all good, nothing can go wrong. But just when we're recording A Quiet Place 2 review in 2 years' time, and maybe things aren't as happy anymore, Timmy. I'm gonna say I told you so, but just I'm warning you. Okay.
Well, I promise if I ever get to make my dream movie, I will not put you in it.
Wait, why am I getting ousted from your feature film debut?
Because I don't want people to uh you know debate our chemistry.
But Tim, people already debate our chemistry. This entire show is formed around our chemistry.
Yeah. All right, keep making noise. See what happens.
We have the chemistry as orchestrated by Walter White, right? He's making that blue meth and real that sweet, sweet product that is better than all the other meth.
Sure. I did watch that show. That's a good show.
That's a great show. I love that show. Should you watch Better Call Saul too? It's fantastic.
Yeah, I need to catch up. I watched the first season. I really liked it, and
Oh.
I'll get caught up someday.
It's good. It's really good. Anyway, so A Quiet Place. Anything else spoiler free that I want to talk about?
Uh,
I feel like we could talk about the design of something, but I feel like even that's kind of spoilery.
uh,
Like the monsters. I mean, it's not a spoiler. It says monsters. Obviously,
Yeah.
there's something killing someone in the movie, hence the threat. But
I'll say this isn't really like super spoily. This is again a little bit of a minor complaint, but I wasn't crazy about the design of the monsters. They felt a little generic to me. Like there was some cool stuff they did that we'll get into in spoilers. That
I want to counter this a little bit by saying I really like their teeth.
okay, yeah, that's cool. I would say like in general, let's just say like their whole head portion. I thought was neat, but overall most of their body just looked a little generic to me, which I feel like we are getting like pretty similar kind of monstery alieny designs for like the last I don't know 10 years or so like all this stuff like the Demigorgon or like um I don't know those
Super 8, Cloverfield, all these.
yeah like it's not like they look bad. It's just everything kind of looks like the same.
I felt like
Which
this had more of a. The body was kind of like that, but I think the head was more like a cross between Alien and like Venom.
yeah, I could see that.
If
Those
I'm
are cool.
compared to something.
And I think luckily in this movie, again the monsters are almost like secondary in it. Like, don't get us wrong, there are monsters in it. That's not a spoiler, but like the tension is all about the having to be quiet and
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah,
things that come up to possibly
In
disrupt
fact,
that.
I think the big part of tension for me that I thought was really super effective is when the film showed you something that is probably going to lead to noise,
Oh, yeah.
and it was like, oh god, and you're just waiting for, oh, don't do it. Because
Yeah.
the real villain of this movie is not the monster. There's an animate object that I'm going to mention. Spoilers. That is the villain of this movie. But with that said, I think we will go into spoilers. So full spoilers for
Let's
A
do it.
Quiet Place from here on out. So the real villain of the movie, of course, is the nail.
Yeah.
So the Home Alone, was it Home Alone 1? Yeah, Home Alone 1 with the nails in the stairs.
Now, oh yeah, I was gonna mention. Have you ever read JLA JLA The Nail? That story.
I've actually not read that particular story, no. It's on the wish list on Comixology.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
Go to our Patreon and give us money, and then I'll buy Jelly the nail and read it. That was a weird plug. That was feeling chill plugging that right there. So,
but yeah, like you
Mhm.
said, once the you see she's walking up and it was like her dress or something gets caught on it, kind of pulls it up a little bit.
Yeah,
That once you see it sticking out, you're like, oh, I know that's
yeah.
gonna lead somewhere.
So let's talk about the fact that they kill a kid in the first 10 minutes of the movie, which I did not know was happening. Obviously, the scenes in the trailer of his toy turning on, but
Yeah.
I did not know that that scene literally ended with the kid being killed, and that's kind of like the dark sort of prologue. And it's a really smart prologue because you see them sneaking around a pharmacy in the city. They get some medical supplies for the brother who's a little bit sick, and you get that okay, the sister's kind of nice. She gives her brother the toy, and the dad takes out the batteries, but the kid he slyly takes the batteries as well, and then you can see where it's going, and he turns it on, and you have the big scene. But it neatly teaches you the rules. They have to be quiet. This is really serious. And then at the end of the prologue, it shows you what happens if they don't stay quiet.
Yeah.
This is the consequences. So
Yeah, it's really great, and I just love that first scene where everyone is just like looking at him, and you don't know what the kid has in their hand, but like you just see the looks on their faces. They're terrified, and the music is kind of starting to swell up, and then I like the reveal of like, oh, it's just this like little toy, but yeah, it's giving you that context that in this world something like that can be like deadly.
yeah, it's a really effective, just little, almost just like a little manifesto for the rest of the movie. Here's what this movie is in a nutshell, and then let's go explore stuff. And of course, you find out we cut ahead, and it's like over a year later because it goes from like day 90 something to or 89 to day like 400 something, and we see that Emily Blunt is pregnant, and immediately
So that's
I go,
what you were referring to. That
yeah,
you
that
didn't
was
know
the
before.
because that a lot of the movie revolves around the fact that she's pregnant and they're preparing for that. And as soon as I realized she's pregnant, I'm like, how the hell do you have a baby in
Yeah.
this world? Like, you can't keep a baby quiet. And then, like, almost immediately you see that they're building like a box that's soundproofed. That's got like a little oxygen mask, so the baby can be in there breathing but be soundproofed. And I'm like, damn, this is kind of dark. But like, what else are you
Yeah.
gonna do? You have to keep the little shit quiet. I mean, what can you do?
What's funny is like the first thing that came to my mind was like, obviously the baby's going to be noisy, but like the pregnancy,
Yeah.
whenever you see a pregnancy on like film or TV, it's one of the noisiest things. The people are screaming, and yeah, as they're kind of pushing out, and so just the idea of, oh, they're gonna have to do this, but they're gonna have to be like quiet is like so like, oh, how are you gonna do that?
Yeah, and of course it is one of the most stressful pregnancies or childbirth scenes ever when it actually happens later on in the movie, because so much is going on as it's happening. But so you have that, you have this central thing, and I'm like, man, how can they even? And I like how visually it sets up this thing. They've got a light system, it's like a warning sign if to switch it to red. Because everything has to be visual, of course. Everything has to be visual. They can't shout at each other. They can't scream for help. They can't do any of these things. To do so would be death. So, and we see them have an accident. At the kids are playing Monopoly, and they've got little soft versions of all the houses because they can't play the plastic ones because it may just be too noisy. And the kid knocks over the lantern, and it's like, oh no, like they'll have to be quiet. And like again, it's just a little scene showing this is how dangerous it is. But then the movie essentially becomes this one long day of hell, this one long day and night of hell, and we see it's about 20 days or so until the baby's due, and Krasinski's taking out his son to teach him how to fish, and the son's scared. He's like, oh, it's dangerous out there, but there's actually a really nice scene where he takes him out there, and he's like, the river's loud and it's a constant noise. It covers up the little noises we make, and he takes him to like a waterfall. And he's like, we can speak here.
Yeah.
We can speak here freely because the waterfall covers the noise up. And I'm like, I like this because it's setting up rules, it's setting up things for later where we can distract the monsters with other noises. If obviously later on, when everything's going down and Emily Blunt's really in danger, the kid sets off a bunch of fireworks, and that's like, oh, the monster's like, off to the fireworks, and it's like a big thing. So,
and I think it's like a good way of setting up the kind of the relationship with John Krasinski's character and the daughter, because she really wants to go with him and the son really doesn't, but he's just insistent, like, oh no, it has to be you stay here, and you see like the frustration in the daughter, and then you kind of learn like later that she just feels like he like honestly like doesn't love her and everything, but
Yeah,
really it's about like
she feels that it's her fault that her brother had the toy because she's the one who gave it
yeah.
to him, and that she's responsible. And I was actually also reading it maybe a little bit because she's deaf, and like, he knew he was going to take his son to this place and let him speak, and
Right,
that
yeah.
she wouldn't like get the benefit of it. She would, feel like, oh, this isn't like, she doesn't get the freedom to enjoy this.
Yeah,
Um,
unfortunate.
and I think maybe I was reading kind of part of it that way as well, and it's all very good. And she gets kind of pissed off, and she just kind of storms off and on her own to where her brother died, and it's the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so, but Emily Blunt's basically on her own in the house because they live underground because it's more soundproof down there as best they can make it. But she's on her own, and she's up in her dead son's bedroom in their house, and that's where things start to go very wrong and things get very tense because her water breaks.
Mhm.
Her water
Not before she steps on the nail. I believe that's the first thing that happens.
is that first?
Uh, or
I could have
maybe or
swore.
does the water break and then she goes downstairs?
I think so. Yeah,
Okay, okay.
yeah. Because her water breaks when she's up in the bedroom, and then it's when she's going downstairs to turn the lights to red to say,
Oh,
"Hey,
okay. All right,
I
yeah.
need help."
Sorry, yeah.
It's when she's going down there. She steps in the nail, and like any person with feeling in their body would screams when she steps on a nail with her bare foot.
And then just the shot of it though too is because usually you think like you'd make the step and then as soon as you feel the nail you kind of like recoil, but like you just see like her whole foot like go
Yeah.
down and like sink into it,
And then
and
she has to like bite down the pain and pull her foot
yeah.
back up, and you see it like coming up and just the blood sliding down the nail. It's very,
Yeah.
very, 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 very like sort of cringy because you're like, ah, god, that actually feels really. You can feel the pain.
Yeah.
But of course this attracts the monsters to the house, and she's turned the lights, but she's hiding on her own. She's like ducked over in the corner. She sets like an egg timer at one point to try and
Yeah.
distract the monster. But this is where
Yeah.
she's like hiding in the corner, and like the things like going around the house and coming down the stairs and looking around, and we're full in suspense. And meanwhile, like on the way home, like Krasinski and the son like encounter this guy who's like just watched his wife die seemingly, and he like just screams because he just wants to die at this point. So Krasinski and the son have to hide. But when they get back and like night's started to fall, and they see the red lights, like from this point on, the whole thing's just like an action scene essentially till the end,
Yeah.
with the suspense and because by this point, Emily Blunt is like, because she gets out with the egg timer from the basement, and then she goes and hides up in the bathroom, but she's in the bathtub, her water's broke, of course, and she gives birth. She's actually giving birth in the bathtub as the monster's stalking her throughout the house, and she's actually, she does scream when she gives birth. She's just lucky at the exact moment she screams is when the kid sets off the fireworks and covers it up, and the monsters sort of scatter elsewhere.
Which is and it's nice. I like the idea that they kind of have all these plans for how to deal with this stuff. Like when that happens, like it's like, oh, okay, like obviously it's not a coincidence, like they had this plan where it's like, all right, well, we have to, and it's set up nicely in the earlier scene with the waterfall and stuff where he's explaining like bigger sound, like you can make sounds as long as there's a bigger sound to cover up for it.
Do you know what I really like about that is I like that it teaches the audience the concept without actually overly explaining all of the actual plans they have.
Yeah.
Like all like the thing with the lights is never explained. You just understand it. You get that red lights now mean bad, danger. I need help.
Which is really crazy to me that they do a lot of stuff like this really well, and then I feel like, not to jump too far ahead, but they beat stuff over the head by the end.
Sure, yeah. Like, there's the one big thing they beat over your head with, but like
everything else is so subtle. It's just the ending though that for some reason they make it like, do you get it? Like, yeah, we do.
This is fine. And obviously, like through all this, there's like, so much is going on at the one time. Like, Krasinski finds Blunt and like takes her down with the baby. And there's like carrying her, but he's carrying her and she's holding the baby, just hoping like. And the baby starts crying, but they're just about to get to the basement and where they've got all the soundproof set up, and like They pull the mattress over, they put the baby in the box, and it's like, oh, it worked. It worked. Like,
Yeah.
they don't hear it. But of course, when he goes out to try and find the kids again, because she wakes up and she's like, hey, where's the kids? And he's like, because they're speaking at this because, oh, no, it worked. The place is soundproof. And it's like, oh, I'll find them, I promise. And he leaves, and we see that there's like the monsters like wreck stuff upstairs, so there's like a pipe that's burst and it's like flooding the basement. But so she wakes up later on and the monster's in the room and it like goes under the water and she like has to go to the baby. It's a whole thing. Very suspenseful.
Yeah.
Very good. I mean, you see the kids getting into danger. The daughter's like flat out like next to one at one point, and they do the first hint of no, the high frequency of her like broken hearing aid actually scares the monster off, and it's like, okay, right, so this is how we're going to beat it by the end of the movie. And
Yeah.
she never knew it was there, which I like that point of that scene.
Yeah. And you see, I think at this point they kind of showed it a little bit that they have this kind of, their whole bodies look kind of armored, and it seems like they have this protective thing on their heads or whatever, but it opens up and has these kind of like giant eardrums that, I guess, ostensibly can like hear great distances away, or even like kind of small slight sounds.
It's like a video game boss where you have to wait for it to open up before you can shoot it.
Yeah.
That's basically what it
That's a
is.
good point.
Yeah. And anyway, it sets that up, and it's like, oh, it's okay, fine. They beat you over the head with it by the time it actually gets used at the end, but no, this is good. And then the kids they're on like the grain silo, right? And there's a lot of fire. They're trying to like show their dad where they are, and they end up falling through. The brother falls through, then the daughter jumps down. They're like sinking into the grain, but they're making so much noise. The doors breaking or the ceiling breaking makes a lot of noise, and they end up, the monster comes in, and then we get have the hearing aid works again, and they're kind of realizing. And I liked how that whole scene played out mostly in silence though, because it was all from the girl's perspective. Like there was a lot of moments like that played very well.
I like a lot of stuff with the kids felt very Jurassic Parky, which not in a not in a bad
sure,
way
I can
or
see what
anything, but it definitely got like a feel like that.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And of course, the brother tried to convince her dad does love you, and he spoke to his dad earlier on. You have to tell her you love her. She feels unloved, basically. So, and Joe, the fact is, I have to say, as soon as the movie started, I was like, okay, Krasinski's sacrificing himself by the end of this movie. I knew this was a movie where the dad's going to die by the end, right? It felt that. Even just the fact that he's teaching the son how to fish because one day you'll need to take care of everyone, and it had that feeling to it.
I can see that. Yeah.
So so the kids are end up running to this truck that's there, and they're inside, and the monster's grabbing at them. All hope seems to be lost, and Krasinski. And at this point, he's got he had a shotgun earlier on, right? And even when he picks up a shotgun in the movie, I immediately went, "That's dangerous as shit." You might shoot one of them, but as soon as you shoot one of them, because one of the things that sets up earlier in the movie is that he's got essentially he's been studying what they are, and he's got okay, so there's their strengths. They've got armor. They're blind, but they hear very well. There's at least 3 of them in this area where we live. But he's like, okay, what's the weakness? He doesn't know. But so we know there's 3 of them at least. So there's at least another 2 kicking around. But as soon as he picks up the shotgun, I'm like, okay, yeah, you may kill one of them with a shotgun, maybe, but that noise is going to no matter where the other 2 are, they're coming.
Yeah.
After a shotgun blast, that's happening. So it's this risk reward thing, and I think the movie does a really good job, because I think by the time you get to that final act, you are so hyper aware of anything that could be making noise. Anytime they do anything where oh, that could make noise, they shouldn't be doing that, or that could be dangerous because that'll make that noise, and so
it weirdly turns into a kind of much more actiony than I would have thought, but not in a bad way. It doesn't feel like oh, this is undeserved, or oh, what are they doing? It feels well earned, all the action and suspense. And especially since kind of like you said earlier, once it starts, it really just goes up and up and up, and it doesn't let up right until the end.
And of course, I expected Krasinski to die, but I thought it wouldn't be till right to the very end. There's actually a little chunk of stuff after he dies, where the kids come back to the house, and they're with the mom, and they're all upset, and they're hugging and all that, and the monster follows them back. The mom's Blunt's got the shotgun at this point, and they go down in his room with all the security cameras and his radio equipment, because we see earlier on in the movie that Krasinski's been trying to, like, basically message other parts of the world to find out if there's anyone else out there using Morse code, and it's not been very fruitful. But the girl eventually realizes, once the monster's down in the basement with them, she thinks back and she's like, oh, high frequency sound, and she plays it and it distracts it, and then she puts it over the tannoy, the mic, and I'm like, which kind of cracked me up. I was like, why was that set up to actually broadcast like out to the speakers? If everyone's supposed to be so quiet, I was questioning the logic of that a little bit, but sure enough, she does that, and it opens its head up, and Emily Blunt just grabs a shotgun and just makes its head explode.
Yeah.
I think it goes down first, then it gets back up. In traditional horror movie fashion, it goes down, gets back up, then a big jump scare, and she blows its head off. And here's where I'm going to make my one real complaint about the movie.
Okay.
I don't like the final shot or the final moment.
Well, like when she kind of like is holding up the shotgun, kind of looking like a badass.
Yeah, because like so like her and her son and their daughter are all looking at each other, and the daughter's like, yeah, I've got my hearing aid, this'll work. And they look at the cameras and they see that the other two monsters are coming towards the farmhouse, right? And the daughter's like, okay, I got my hearing aid, I'll turn the the volume of this thing all the way up, and Emily Blunt just picks up the shotgun and cocks it. And I get what they're going for here. I get that they're going for, and that's when it cuts to the credits. And I get what they're going for, because she has this smirk, she cocks the gun, and I'm like, okay, I get that the whole thing is now we're not scared anymore and we can fight. That's a fine point to make. But I think having her cock the shotgun and smirk feels like the end of an action movie. And it feels out of tone with the rest of the film to me.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It is like tonally just a strange last little thing to end on. Like, if anything, because the focus of the movie is, about this family, and it's a very, I forgot the word, but like it's like a very like, internal kind of small, group of people and stuff, and then that's what the focus should be. So like the last shot should be them kind of like all like hugging or something, and maybe you can have them be like,
here's the thing, I don't even think it has to change that much. Here's all you have to do to fix my problem with it. Instead of her smirking and cocking it like, yeah, let's make noise, we're not scared anymore.
Yeah.
Honestly, you have her look at the daughter. The daughter's like, well, I'll do it. You not actually say it out loud, but just like nod, and have her nod, and have her hold up the gun and sort of like clench it, kind of like, right, like sort of like scared, but like, okay, maybe we can do this. Like have a bit of hope, but cutting that. Instead, it's like, oh, now I'm in an action movie, I'm going to take these bastards on. Yeah. It feels like it turns into, I don't know. Do you know what it is? It's the goddamn ending of the first Resident Evil movie. It's Mila Jovovich with the gun. I'm going to take on these zombies. Yeah. It's that moment, and it just feels out of place tonally with the rest of the movie. It's weird, but
yeah, for everything that's like been leading up to this like very it's very quiet, subdued movie, and like again, like the action like feels like it should be in the movie, and it's totally fine. But yeah, it should still be regular people.
Yeah, the action's very survival. It feels like they're always like the underdogs, like they're always screwed, and they just narrowly make it out with some trickery, And then at the end, it's like, nah, I'm a badass. And Emily Blunt is a badass. You see Edge of Tomorrow. She's a pretty tough action hero. She can do this stuff. It just feels out of tone with the movie. It's weird.
Yeah, it's weird. It makes you like. It almost seems like this is leading up to like A Quiet Place 2, Let's Get Loud or something like.
Yeah,
which should not happen.
If this was Alien, it feels like it's setting up as Aliens, where it's like, okay, this time it's war, and I'm like, I'm not against that movie, but I don't think it should be Emily Blunt with her kids, fighting the monsters with the guns.
Yeah, I saw some people online already talking about like sequel possibilities and stuff, and I don't know. I just feel like this is such a great like one and done movie. I really don't want to see a sequel. I mean, if they can think of a good idea, like I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but
I'm not opposed to
it. Feels like it should be.
But I don't think it should be these characters. I feel like if you're doing another movie in this world, I think you do it in the same world, but you do it with different characters, and you do it with a different type of set of characters. And what I mean by that is that it's not a family. Maybe it's an entire town of people being quiet, and that's like a new, set of challenges. Maybe it's I don't know, some different type of group of people in a completely different situation.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's like
Let's see. Yeah, like what does a city environment look like in this landscape or something? Or
yeah, I mean, yeah, at least if you have a family in a city, that's a lot. Because obviously, I said they're in the city at one point in this, but it's really just a small town. They go to the small town
yeah,
for some supplies and come back. But you know, yeah, as there like people in cities, is there like maybe like a whole little village, a community of people who are all staying quiet together?
yeah, it'd be
You know,
interesting.
I think there's possibilities uh, to do. I'm not saying I want it for sure, like, but I'm saying that
Yeah,
I'm not opposed to them exploring other ideas. But I think just doing a sequel. Oh no, now the kids are a bit older, and you know,
yeah,
Emily's a proper badass now. Especially since they've figured out how to fight them, so it's maybe not as interesting.
yeah, that's true.
So
Uh, the one thing we didn't really mention is, you did say that John Krasinski sacrifices himself, but didn't really say how. Um,
yeah, he
just because
actually he screams out to save his kids, but before he does so, he knows he's about to die, so he does some sign language to his daughter to tell her he loves her.
when it's I think it's like a great moment, just because the few times when people like scream in this movie, again, most of it is so quiet, and the ramifications of what that is, that even just doing like a basic scream or whatever, it feels like, so like, oh wow, like they're doing it. That's why, like, I like the scene too with like the old guy, just because in the same way where you can see he's
Which
about
by
to
the way,
scream.
in terms of jump scares, I think the old guy popping up in the background was the one that kind of jolted me the
Oh yeah,
most.
oh yeah, yeah.
Because it was out of
It was
nowhere, just
good.
an old guy just appeared in the background. What's Santa Claus
uh,
doing here?
but yeah, like I like them just kind of like like pleading with them, like they're like, no, 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 like please don't, and you can just see him getting ready. Is good stuff. But yeah, I mean uh like the few complaints, really, it's like just the mention, like the creatures like a little bit generic, and then yeah, like the whole hearing aid stuff. I'm totally fine with that being a plot point. Like I didn't mind it, but just again, they just beat you over the head with it. Like by the end, she's looking at like the diagrams, or the diagram for the implant, and then like looking up at the speaker, and then like kind of wondering like, "Ooh, I wonder." Like, yes, yes, we get it. Uh,
I did
it's
like the moment
especially
when they first went down there, though. I did like the moment where she sees, because we see earlier on she's not allowed to go down there because of all
oh
the
yeah, okay.
equipment, and I do actually like the moment where she sees the desk and he's got like all these books out. He's trying to understand how to build a hearing aid, and he's got all these like parts for hearing aids. And she sees like how much effort he's been putting into
Yeah,
this for years, for the last year, trying to like give her a hearing aid so she can hear again. And it's kind of this like after his death, like she realizes how much he really cared.
yeah.
So
Now,
that was a sweet little moment.
were you as I mean, I don't know if you knew this going in, but I didn't, or if I did, I forgot. But I was pretty surprised to see Michael Bay's name in the credits.
Um, I didn't, but I knew it would be there because the movie starts with Platinum Dunes,
On the
because
news. Yeah,
that's his company. Which is
I,
funny because as soon as I saw it, I went, "Hey, if this is good, which it is, then Platinum Dunes made a good movie," because I associate them with the Texas Chainsaw remake and the Hills Have Eyes remake. That's what I think of when I think of Platinum Dunes. So
yeah,
credit where credit's due. So I don't think
yeah.
Michael Bay's actually involved in it anyway. It's just his
Oh,
company
sure.
that's
Yeah,
made it or
yeah.
produced it. So
I just thought it was funny because it's like the complete opposite of what you think of like a Michael Bay movie. It's just
yeah,
like,
it's
oh, it's
quiet.
quiet. Yeah.
Yeah. It's quiet. It's like he came in just for that final shot, right? Have her cock the gun, smirk. She's a badass now. Like, here's the thing. It's not even that I have a problem with her being a badass, but it should have been a badass that fit the story that was told up till this point. You know,
Right. Yeah.
just have her hold up the gun and cock it, but don't the smirk. Do you know what it is? It's the smirk. The smirk's the part that makes it feel wrong, because it feels like I'm an action hero, and like, no, have her hold up the gun and cock it as if she's not scared, but have it be like this moment of determination where she's like, I'm not scared anymore. I'm going to take these bastards out. Instead, it's like, this was a light-hearted action movie, and I'm a badass now. So
Yeah, and
yeah.
it's just this, and again with the uh like the emphasis on the hearing aid stuff. It's not like that would be as big a problem if everything else in the movie was kind of acting against it. Like everything else in the movie is very subtle, and yeah, it's not like there's action elements, but no one really feels like action stars, and so it's just weird with this stuff where it's like, oh, like you were doing so good, and then just this little bit of stuff at the ending just gives you some like minor quibbles, but
Yeah.
again, really doesn't affect like too much of my overall enjoyment of the movie. But I think that's what the little bit that keeps it just shy of being like, oh wow, this was amazing. Like it's
Hmm.
like okay, like I don't know if fixing those would have like improved my opinion like that much, but
Yeah, I don't think it
doesn't
would
hurt
have
really.
really. I think the ending shot really bugged me, but I don't think it's like actually that much of a deterrent to the rest of the movie. I think it's very well directed. I think, I like this enough that I think, oh, Krasinski's one to watch if he's making more movies. If he's
Yeah,
directing more movies, I'd be very curious to see what he does. I think
definitely.
it's very well directed. It's maybe not completely stand out. Like, it's like super. See, that sounds harsh to say it's super competent, and because it's better than competent, but I think what I mean by that is it's not like I came away from this going, oh man, this had a visual style that blew me away. That
Sure.
this
Yeah.
new director who like I'm obsessed with now, but it was pretty well done, and
Mhm.
like a lot of the suspense really worked. And it did that great thing where you see the nail and you're like, oh my god, that's going to make her scream if she steps on it. And then
Yeah.
later on where like you realize her water's broke and she's on her own and like everything about, which by the way, again going back to her smirking holding a shotgun, she gave birth like 10 hours ago at this point.
Yeah.
And I guess she's not got much choice in the matter, but still I'm
Yeah.
making the point. So no, but it's a really solid movie and it's doing really well actually. It's like, had like a 50 million opening weekend.
Nice.
uh
What
which I think is worth mentioning, Tim, that horror movies right now in the last like year and a half are doing pretty well.
yeah, you know what makes me happy? It's not just the fact that the horror movies are doing well, but that good horror movies are doing well.
Hmm.
Uh because it's one thing if it's like, oh wow, like the latest Saw movie is breaking all these records, like who cares? But the fact that like stuff like Get Out and
Get Out did
you
really
know,
well. I mean, I think it did too well compared to how good it is compared, to the other movies, but still,
sure,
it's a pretty decent
yeah,
movie. That broke all sorts of horror records. But Get Out did well. Insidious 4 actually made the most of that franchise, bizarrely
that's
enough.
surprising.
I know it's the
Yeah.
weakest one by far, but there you go. And then what else came out in the last year that did really well? There was another one. Uh,
What was the other big one? I feel like there's
it was.
something.
I'm sure it was between Get Out and It.
y-
Something in that window.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but it doesn't really matter. But the point is that horror movies are doing well, and that was actually part of the reason why it's rumored that Fox delayed the New Mutants is because they
Oh
went,
yeah.
oh hey, horror is
That's,
doing really well, and we promised this was a horror movie. It's not enough of a horror movie. Let's reshoot half of it to make it more of a horror movie, which sounds like it's going to be a disaster, to be honest. I mean, when they start
yeah.
doing that, it sounds like it's going to be a complete mess, probably. I mean, I happily accept my mistake there if it ends up being good. I'm always hoping
Yeah.
for good, but uh, so no, it's actually really cool that horror seems to be popular right now,
Yeah.
and the funny thing is even if you just look at what's been good in the last little while, we're actually,
Mhm.
I mean, I know we do a lot of shit, Tim, and there's a lot of shit, but there's always been a lot of shit. But just
Yeah.
think of the last like 5-6 years of horror
Mhm.
movies. On top of the stuff from the last year that we've mentioned that's done well financially, we've also had It Follows, we've had The Witch, but
Oh,
we've
yeah.
had these movies. Like I feel like there's like more good horror movies in the last like half decade than there probably was like in like the 90s or the 2000s.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like, I think at the very least, every year we get like, bare minimum, like two new movies that are like, well, this is probably gonna go on my like top 100 list. Like, these are really good. Um, and yeah, like I can't really say that for too much of the 90s or like the early 2000s. Probably it seems like
Yeah.
yeah, it's much more sporadic. Like, still a lot of fun movies at
Oh
that
sure,
time. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
but
I think yeah, like my one complaint would be that there's no good slasher movies recently.
mm,
Not enough
yeah, it's
anyway.
fair.
Everything's haunting things. Oh, Don't Breed's another
Yeah,
great one that did well. Don't Breed's
that's
great.
true. Yeah.
So no, I'm glad that horror movies seem to be rewarded with some financial gain. I mean, Blumhouse is making a career off of it, so
Yeah. I'm
interest in
a
Bloom.
and the more I hear about like the Halloween news is it's getting me really excited. Like like still don't really know much, but just like the little tidbits here and there.
Just
Like
think,
this could be a
when
good movie.
we talk about Halloween 2018, you'll be a married man,
Oof.
and
How
you'll be sitting
exciting!
down to talk about Michael Myers. That's going to be a monumental, milestone uh, in this show and your life.
The show will have come full circle by that point.
Well, what's
I
full
don't
circle?
know.
You were single when the show started, and then you're married. That's full circle. No,
Sure,
full circle's
yeah.
after the divorce when you're single again. That's when it's full circle.
And I get killed by a man in a mask.
And you
That's
killed a
when.
man in the mask with a big butcher knife. Yeah, that's the plan. So where's it going? Oh yeah, so we need to rate the movie, I suppose, out of 10. So what are you thinking?
So I really liked it a lot, and again, I feel like it, really delivered on the premise. So I'm gonna give it a pretty high score. I'm gonna give it an 8, which again, if it wasn't for those minor complaints, I could have easily seen this as like an 8.5. But yeah, for right now, it's gonna be an 8.
No, actually, I completely agree with the 8. I think that it is a very good. I mean, honestly, probably even great. I think on a rewatch, I might even like bump it up to great. I think everything it does well, it does very well, and I think the suspense, the unique atmosphere, because it is so quiet and there's no talking for the vast majority of the film, gives it a very interesting premise, and it works really well. Like I say, there's just a couple of quibbles towards the end, and just the feeling that I almost wish it was a little bit longer, and we just
Yeah.
there was a little bit more. But everything it does for the most part, it does really really well. So, A Quiet Place, one of the big notable horror movies that we're looking forward to in 2018. Obviously, there's many more to come.
Yeah.
Interesting, I got a trailer for Deadpool 2 when I seen this. Sure, that and Slender Man. I got a Slender Man trailer. Looking forward to that, Timmy.
I mean, we're gonna see it, but I don't know.
Well,
Yeah, trailer.
that's the thing with this show, Timmy, is we see all the shit anyway. We're just
Yeah.
it exists. We're seeing it, I suppose.
Honestly, I'd probably see this stuff even without the show. Maybe every now and again, I might skip the occasional Bye Bye Mans, but for the most part, I probably still see a lot.
Not
of
on
stuff.
this show, Timmy. Not on
Yeah.
this show. So
Oh, that's a movie we forgot to bring up. Bye Bye Man. I'm not sure how well it did, but
more than it should have. If it made more than $10, it made too much, and it made more than that from just the two of us going to see it. Unfortunately, because movie tickets are extortionate. Basically.
Oh boy.
So this is a bit good. So yeah. There's other stuff I'm looking forward to doing. I mean, we'll get to the Strangers 2 at some point in the year, and what else we got coming out?
So Suspiria remake, is that actually coming out?
I don't know. I've heard it been in the works for so long that we'll see.
I thought it was supposed to come out in like May or something, but it's like no trailer, no details.
Yeah. I think Truth or Dare's out soon, but that's probably. I think we'll wait for the home release on that. I think Tim, it's probably wise for us to, we'll still do the shit, but I think we reserve the right to maybe rent it for cheaper later on than go and pay it for it in the theater. I feel
I'm
like,
okay with that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a few. I think Slender Man, for example, may be a bit too big to skip. Like, oh no, everyone goes out like to hear what we think about Slender Man because it's the big hot title. But
I mean, maybe if like. Maybe if there's something we're iffy about, if I don't know, we do a poll, or if enough people really want us to do it, I'm okay with
No,
going out and
they'll always just say yes. They'll always just say go and suffer, which is why we make the choice. So, and that's the thing. I will never say we're not doing something. We'll always do it, but we might just wait for the home release in some cases because,
fair.
You know, screw supporting some of this shit. Come on.
It's a big year too. Like when I go to the movies, it's like trailer after trailer is like oh, this is like a big movie that I don't want to watch, but I'm sure some people would.
Do you have an example of something you don't want to see that's going to be big?
Rampage, Pacific Rim 2.
I thought you liked Pacific Rim 2.
I didn't see it.
Okay.
You know, no GDT, not for me.
I quite liked it, Tim. I'm not gonna lie. I quite enjoyed Pacific Rim 2.
I didn't rush out to the theaters to see it, but you know, I'll watch it at some point when it's available. But
I liked it more than Shape of Water, if I'm honest.
Well, everyone has their weird opinion, so.
I like this more than Shape of Water. I liked a lot of things more than Shape of Water.
Okay. I don't know why you're bragging about having bad taste, but so be it.
I want to hurt you, Tim. I want to hurt you bad.
Hey, listen, Shape of Water won an Oscar. It doesn't need me backing it up. I think they're doing just fine. I don't think my boy Del Toro is that concerned about what the I don't want to be too insulting, but what certain people think. So
yes. Well, we shall see about that, Timothy. So I guess we're done. We rated the movie. I guess we're wrapped up.
Yeah. What else do you want from us?
That has been A Quiet Place. Now, we warned you like a month and a half ago that we'd be slowing down episodes. We'd probably be skipping weeks, and we actually haven't. We've actually hit an episode every single week since we said that. And next week is the first week where we might skip a week. It's 50-50, basically, is what we're saying. We will definitely be back the week after that if we do skip next week, but next week's the 1 week we might actually have to skip in terms of having an episode. But we'll try and squeeze one out. Yeah. Or more to the point, Tim will try and squeeze one out. I'm ready to go, but poor Timmy over there is away for the weekend again. Busy life. I don't know how you do it, Timmy.
Who knew planning a wedding would be so much work? Fun work, but
just go down to the local government, get the marriage done. Don't need the big fancy ceremony. Don't need the whole charade, the dress and all that. No, just go down.
Well, charade.
get put on a hoodie. Go get married. Sign a document.
There's a part of me that does think like, it might not be such a bad idea, but
get the license. You'll save a lot of money.
yeah. It's you're not wrong. But
that said, I know, Tim, you want a day where it's all about you, and everyone's just there to worship you. I mean, the bride's there too, sure, but it's all about you.
Yeah. Anyone that knows me knows I'm becoming quite the groomzilla. That's.
Tim, be straight with me. Is there going to be a giant like ice sculpture of a goat at the wedding? I want to know.
Yeah. No, but actually, I was surprised to see how many goats there were in Hawaii.
I wouldn't have thought of Hawaii as a goat-filled country, or not country.
Just
you know what I mean.
The island we're on Kona, and we're just like driving down the highway, and there's just like these herds of wild goats, like obviously they're not native. I'm assuming at some point someone brought them there, and then they just bred and kind of wander around now.
Oh, clearly it's some sort of maniacal villain's evil plan. They had this plan back in the 70s to I'm going to take over Hawaii with goats, and then it went nowhere, and then there's just a bunch of goats running around randomly.
Yeah. And a lot of them look like Black Phillip too, which I liked. So that's always nice.
From The Witch, just for anyone who didn't get that reference. Yes. So that's A Quiet Place. So by all means, let us know what you thought of the movie in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff.
Tell us where your quiet place is.
Oh yes, Connor was giving me shit the other day for not promoting the Patreon enough. I always just kind of rhyme it off in the closing spiel without really saying anything about it. So just to make it a bit more clear, if you do want to support the show and the channel, and what we do here, all the other shows are included in this, but Streams After Midnight specifically, if you do go over to Patreon, you get Streams TV a week early at the dollar tier, but for $5 in patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, you get to vote once a month for what one of our episodes are going to be between 4 movies. The vote up for this month's up right now for what we'll do next month. The theme being the end of the school year, so it's all graduation and prom and movies of that sort, all high school based. So that's one thing you can do. You can go over to Patreon if you want to support us.
Everyone's assignment this week is to sign a friend up without their knowledge.
Steal a credit card.
Yeah.
Sign them up to our Patreon and just hope they never notice. Yeah, there you go. That's an idea. But no, if you want to do that, it supports us out, and you know, especially if you listen to the audio, you're not watching ads. Mm-hmm. If you are on YouTube and use ad block, don't have to feel guilty. You know, I mean, literally, no. This is the truth. Is that if you give us $1 a month, you're giving us more money than we'd ever get from the ads that you watch. So if you want to support the show, that's something you can do. But don't feel bad if you can't. Obviously, this is no judgments. This is not strong arming you. It's something if you can't afford it and you want to feel good about yourself, you'll get a warm fuzzy feeling, a mildly fuzzy feeling, you might say.
Oh, there you go.
See what I did there, Tim? See what I did? Gold, Tim, I tell you, gold!
Okay.
So we'll see you next week if Tim doesn't slack, but if not, we'll see you the week after.
We shall see.
Slacker. Anyway, that's been Screams After Midnight. We always appreciate you checking us out, watching and listening. It's always a pleasure. Keep watching scary movies, guys, and we'll see you next time.